first of all, I just want to gush on you for a second, because not only do I love your book, but I also love you as a person, and so I'm so excited to share this day with you.
Thank you. Feelings mutual about the book and the person.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad it was a twofold one. That was awesome. So do you want to start and give like a little elevator pitch on Not Here to Stay Friends, which, you know, is always so fun to do those little pitches.
Exactly. And you'll do it right after I'm done. So if I really mess up, people will just be left with whatever you say. So Not Here to Stay Friends is my Bachelor-inspired reality dating show, romantic comedy. It's young adult, and it's about two best friends, childhood best friends who have lived apart for a few years, but are reunited for the summer and end up wrapped up in this reality dating show centered around a really popular teen actor. And Sloan, one of the main characters, is a contestant on the show. Liam is working behind the scenes, and all the drama ensues from there, as happens with reality dating shows.
And teenagers.
Yes.
And then my book, The Plus One, is the third in a series of standalones. This book follows characters Indira and Jude, who are childhood nemesis. The book starts off with Indira having just the worst day of her life. There's a big snafu with peanut butter and what soon becomes her ex-boyfriend. And she flees to the solace and safety of her brother's house, only to discover that the person that she despises the most, her older brother's best friend, is also sitting there. And so Jude has been gone for a couple of years. He's been working in emergency medicine in areas of high conflict and, you know, natural disasters. And so he's struggling really in the sad boy feels for a lot of it. And the duo, because this is a rom-com, the duo decide that they absolutely have to fake date to the older brother's wedding to make her ex jealous. And, you know, Indira also offers Jude some comfort in how much he's annoyed by her and almost an escape from overstimulation and stuff. And so, you know, what happens when two people start fake dating? They just leave it at that when it's all said and done and there's no real feelings involved. Yep, they end as enemies. There was no emotional growth or connection, and that's kind of where we left it.
Plus one.
Yeah.
I love how I kind of didn't realize until I was just the past few days thinking more about this event we're doing together and realized that we have childhood friends and childhood enemies. And how do we end up combining those?
Yes.
We were talking about this, we love the friends to lovers trope.
Mm-hmm.
And especially, like we were best friends as childhood, reconnect as adults or like young adults, new adults kind of. How did you land on we're childhood enemies, but we're going to reconnect as adults?
Yeah, so this book was a tough one because I actually had to rewrite it completely from what what it originally was. Indira, she's been a part of this series in this friend group since the first book, and she's always presented as very hard-headed and a very passionate person. And so I kind of had her voice in my head moving along. But when I first started drafting the book, there was always animosity with Jude, but what the story became was so different from what I originally wrote. What I originally wrote was horrible, so we'll just leave it at that. But yeah, and so you know, I think it just, for a long time, I was trying to force these characters into a dynamic that wasn't true to them. And I think at the end of the day, it's like, it's trying to fit a square peg in a round hole where it's just like, you just got to let them do their thing. And so they wanted to hate each other at the start. And so I let them be mean to each other and get it out of their system. So then they can start being really nice to each other. But yeah, and nice little segue there, but Liam and Sloan are besties like through and through. And now, I mean, like, reading about their connection was so fun because it made me feel like I was part of their best friend group. I almost had like FOMO that I couldn't be like as connected with them. And so have you always liked the friends to lovers trope, or was this just like how you had to go about it, or what was the inspiration there?
Yeah, it also wasn't really what I was thinking I would do initially. And Liam and Sloan would be your friend if you want that. But yeah, I think when I first started thinking about having a reality dating show book, which was just always a concept in my mind, like since I started writing, because I'm such a reality show fan, I had thought kind of obviously that it would be like a main character and she would end up with the lead of the show. Not to spoil the entire book for you, but I kind of already have with talking about Liam and Sloan. But main character down here of the show is Aspen, and he is a whole other just presence in the book where it's like a love triangle, but is it really? And yeah, so I kind of started working with that idea that Sloan might end up with some teen actor who's the star of this dating show. And as I got more into it, I'm like, well, why on earth would this girl like end up on this show in the first place? And that led me to, she kind of stumbles into it because her best friend's dad is the producer. And then we came up with, okay, who's the best friend? And Liam just kind of came out from there. And then I couldn't let go of the idea of like a friends to lovers romance. And it all came together from there. But yeah, it was totally different from what I initially had in mind. And I didn't really have any idea of like who the actor was going to be at first. So then once I decided he wasn't going to be the romantic lead, it was really fun to just make him like extremely ridiculous in so many ways.
He was like endearing in his ridiculousness too. It was really fun to read. And so, okay, but I do want to like dive in because you are very invested in reality TV in real life. And so like, was The Bachelor always just the most obvious choice as like inspiration for this teen dating show? Or were there other like, we have Love is Blind, Love Island, like, there's so many options. So Bachelor-esque, like where did that come from?
Right. I definitely watch all of them. Like you can't make a show, a reality dating show, and I will find it inevitably and watch it. Even if it's terrible, I'll give it a try. Are they all terrible in some ways? Depends who you ask. But I've been watching the Bachelor franchise the longest for sure, like since way before I should have been watching it, like a literal child. So it really like was imprinted on my brain from way too young of an age. And I wanted to do something that was like one lead and a bunch of like contestants competing for them, as opposed to you have like Love Island and Love is Blind and all that. It's a bunch of different couples and they're all mixing together and stuff. I wanted to kind of have one central person I'm focusing on. And as I got more into it, I decided that like the sisterhood aspect was going to be important too, because that's kind of a whole thing when you're watching Bachelor or Bachelorette, is like the contestants become friends with one another or enemies with one another. And that was really fun to work with too, and all centered around this weird guy. And like, once I decided, okay, like I write young adult, so I knew it was going to be like, why on earth is there a young adult reality dating show? So then that became like, there's an actor at the center of it, and it's like a spinoff of his really over the top teen drama where they're like, we're gonna pair him with a real girl, and it goes really well, as you would expect if it happened in real life. But yeah, it was The Bachelor just kind of was the default because it's what I've been watching forever and ever, and also I thought it worked well for what I wanted to do with the story in the end.
I love
it. Totally pivoting, because I would ask you about reality dating shows, but that has nothing to do with your book.
I'm a Vanderpump Rules fan, in case anybody wants to talk about that. Like the
so how did Vanderpump Rules inspire the plus one? What did you draw inspiration from with the plus one?
Yeah, I don't, that's a tough one, because I try to like think back on that too. Like a lot of people I feel like have these stories of like moments of spark or inspiration where they're like, oh yes, like this is what I want to write, or this is what I'm thinking about. And I like very rarely have those sensations or those feelings. I had that for my first book, but it hasn't happened since, unfortunately. It's more just like ripping it out of my brain. But this is cheesy and like, but very on brand. Taylor Swift dropped Folklore right around this time that I was drafting this book, and it just kind of changed. It kind of like rearranged me on like a cellular molecular level, and so that was really important too. I think I was just really inspired by this concept of writing about two people that are really hurting, but they're not. They find a lot of laughter, joy, like in the hurt. I always think that there's something like inherently funny about something really traumatizing happening.
We have this in common.
Yeah.
We discovered more as we began to get that.
Yeah. And so it's like, I don't know, I just think that there's a lot of beauty in laughing about bad moments that happen. And so I was kind of inspired on exploring that too, where it's like, it's this very painful, life experience that's happening, but you also find so much joy simultaneously. And because I think we think about these concepts of happiness and sadness as polar opposites and things that you can't really experience simultaneously, but they exist and they're together at all times. And, even your happiest moments have a tinge of sadness to them. And so, that was a huge component of it. And then, I don't know what else. There was not a lot. Well, the other thing I read too was this book called The Body Keeps the Score, which is a really interesting book about the physiological aspects of PTSD. And it's kind of a long-term study of different patients and things like that. And so I was reading that before I fully had mapped out what the story was going to be. And it ended up being hugely influential in Jude's journey and his grappling with the trauma that he's processed and stuff. And so, largely inspired that way too. Yeah. So I think one thing that, what? Go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say, I think one thing that's like interesting and slightly different between our books is there's groups of friends and we do it in very different ways. Like this book has an amazing ensemble cast which you had to do creating, this reality TV show where, it's 25 contestants. And so, when writing, I keep my groups very small because I can't keep track of people. Like I have a hard enough time, like with my cats and my fiance, like that's about all I can keep organized with my characters. And so reading this, I was just like, dang, like Kaitlyn like added them all in here, and they were also fleshed out so beautifully too. So was that like tremendously hard, or did that come naturally?
Definitely the former. It was like the earliest drafts of this book, I feel like Sloan existed in this bubble. Like she was the person on the reality show who was not here to make friends because she just didn't have friends. She just didn't meet anyone. I mean, like I would name other contestants that were there, but they had no personalities. It was like nothing was happening. And I have a habit of doing that in like early drafts where side characters will just exist to be like the sounding board for the main character's problems or like the Greek chorus of like kiss him, like just that's the whole point of the whole like side character. And so each draft I have to go more and more into like, okay, these are actual people too. They're going to be not cardboard cutouts. And I think that it ended up like being something that I embraced and realized is something that I enjoy a lot about the Bachelor franchise is just the dynamics between all the contestants. It was a lot to keep track of, so I kind of tried to focus in on like a core group that Sloan is close with, and they're like her roommates on the show. There's a lot of just names that get dropped, and you never hear them again. Like there's 25 contestants, Sloan's the 25th, and a lot of people have to go home because there's only so much time in a book. And so there's the timeline of the story starts to like pick up, and it's like 5 more girls go home, and you've never heard of them before, but goodbye, Piper. And you're like, who's Piper? So that was fun because I just like went them after like real friends of mine. And they're just there for a second, but bye.
Have you had a conversation with them where you're like, I don't think you would have made it to the final, like you would not have been given the rose? Like
in a way that would be a compliment though.
Yeah.
Like, I think you would not have been successful on this horrible reality show I invented, and that's because I respect you. So that's kind of how that worked out. I did just like during drafting and revising, I had to like keep a chart of like, these are all the girls. These are everyone here week 1 or like episode 1. It's not even weeks. It's like so fast. And then these are the 5 that go home, the first casting call, which is like a rose ceremony. And then it got like color coded. It was a whole thing. So that was really how I kept track of it. And even still, I mean, I assume that my publishing team is amazing and the copy editors caught me if I messed anything up, but I would not be surprised if you still picked up something in the end that you were like, Kaitlyn, that girl went home last week and suddenly you're dropping her name again. There are just a lot of people to keep track of, but it was fun. It was fun to work with a bigger cast than I had in anything I'd written so far, even if most of them were not really that essential to the plot. Yeah.
Awesome. I love it. Do you think you'll do an ensemble cast again in a future book?
Yeah. So far, the books that I've worked on have had like reality shows at the center of them. And the first one, Love from Scratch, was just kind of like a core pair, but then there are all these chefs that they work with. It's a whole cooking channel thing. The third one I've been working on right now is another show where like the whole cast is together a lot like this one, and again, it's a lot of names to keep track of, and I have charts and color coding and who goes home each week and whatever. But it's like my Amazing Race type like wilderness adventure book is book 3, and then I'm gonna stop writing about reality shows. It's enough. I can't be a Vanderpump.
I need you to write me a Vanderpump Rules.
Well, I don't watch it yet, but I just know if I did, I would end up writing reality show books forever. Because there's just too much good content out there.
Truly.
I love in your ensemble cast that is, you know, smaller, but you actually know all of them quite well because they've been the main characters in previous books. And something I wondered about as I was reading this one is just like, as you bring back characters from past books, what goes into like, how much thought goes into their appearances in the book, the core couples from the past books? Because I love where they show up in the +1. There's a lot of really fun scenes with all the friends together.
Yeah, I think a lot of times with each consecutive book, I've kind of plotted out those moments where the previous couple shows up as one of the first things, because I'm like, I need them to make another appearance. I miss them so much. Like they feel very personal, like my personal friends. And so, yeah, those are some of my favorite scenes to write and some of the first that I do write. And they're also like just really fun scenes to write because they had their happy ending. And I'm not taking that away. And so it's like, you know, everything's just perfect and they're happy.
It's
and like
a bonus epilogue.
Exactly. Yeah. I just get to see them thriving. I get to see them thriving, which is, you know, so fun. And like I said, like I do feel very close to all of my characters in a lot of ways. And so, yeah, I love bringing them back in and showing little bits and pieces of where they've moved and maneuvered in life, and that they're still kind of holding this course and that happily ever after that we're guaranteed in the stories and stuff like that. And so I feel very lucky to have been able to write this trilogy too and kind of follow along with this gang of girls.
Yes. I was also wondering if you always knew it was going to be a trilogy. Like when you wrote A Brush with Love, did you know all along it was going to be then Lizzie and Rick, then Indira? And,
yeah, you know, it's funny. So we were chatting last night, and my fiance brought this up, but I have a tendency to work on anything but the book I'm on contracted and on deadline for. And so yeah, when like the going gets tough, and which is like every 4 pages or so, yeah, which is like the entire time. You know, I have these other characters that pop into my head, and they're extremely voicey and loud, and they start telling me their story and stuff like that. And so I just kind of chase that as far as I can, because I'm like, okay, well, I probably won't have inspiration later for them, so I might as well see how far I can take this. And my agent calls it like productive procrastination. Yeah. And so, you know, which is, yeah, it makes me feel really good about myself for not doing the work that I need to be doing. No, but I kind of mentioned earlier that my first book, I did have that like moment, that spark where like I thought of the idea of this book, and that was A Brush with Love. And those characters popped into my head. They were very loud, they were very voicey, and with them came this friend group and this group of girls, and they were so unique and individual in how they were talking to me and presenting to me in my head. And that sounds like I'm like a crazy person, but I do really hear their voices very clearly, like when I'm working on it. And so, yeah, I knew that they all wanted to have their story told. And so, you know, writing this series was kind of the first thing that I ever did solely for the joy of doing it. And so I knew I was going to write their books regardless of what happened. I just got lucky enough that somebody was willing to publish it afterwards. Yeah.
I understand that feeling
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
When you write things that are purely just you're having a great time and you're like, don't know if this is ever going to go anywhere. And then you're amazed when actually it does.
Yeah.
And up until the point that it's actually like a book that people can hold in their hands, it still kind of doesn't feel real.
No, it doesn't feel real at all. And it all feels fake all the time. You're like, and then you like look back on the thing that you created this one, I guess, but you look back on it and you're like, oh dang, like that's a lot of words that I pulled out of there.
All this come from.
Yeah,
I didn't think I knew that many words.
Yeah, because it's hard enough carrying on the sentence, like, you know.
Yeah, I feel that.
Would you say that you plan out your books based around like tropes or sparks of ideas or things like that? Or like, let's talk tropes. I mean, for romance writers, we need to get into it.
Yeah, I think it's pretty common for romance writers, but definitely I'm someone who like starts with kind of a hook / trope that I want to work with that I haven't yet. And like I say hook or trope, and like hook, I did not even know what it was until I got really into like publishing circles and everyone talks about the hook. But that's like, what's the thing that's going to catch people's interest? So like a reality dating show book, hook. So that was like what I knew with this one. I didn't know it was going to be friends to lovers at first. But like every time now that I'm getting into a new idea, I just think of like, what's a romance trope that I love to read, but I haven't written yet? And play around with that. Often is kind of the genesis of things, and it might change as I go along with drafting. But yeah, like this one, I didn't know it was going to be friends to lovers, and it just kind of ended up making sense as I thought, how is this person going to end up in this situation? Oh, it's like a best friend. And then, I was never particularly attached to friends to lovers as a trope. I think it's like in the middle tier of tropes that I enjoy.
All right, I think that is actually inaccurate because it's
no.
a top tiered trope and it's so polarizing. I don't mean to like call you out on your release
You
date.
think I'm lying about my feelings about friends to lovers?
No, but I just think your feelings are invalid when it comes to That's all I'm saying.
You're probably right. I agree.
No, okay, yeah, it is a very polarizing trope. I love it because I really like, I don't know, I won't get into it. I won't get on my soapbox right now. Like,
now's the time.
No, now is not the time. It's like, it's weird because I'm like about to argue against the trope that I use and like argue for the trope that you use.
Well, then I'll argue in defense of your book.
Yeah, yeah, we could just do that, like a mock debate, like on all of that.
Your position is my book.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, is there a trope that you like really want to write, or are you like too afraid to ever write, or absolutely hate and would never touch? Like, what are your feelings on that?
So I really enjoy as a reader, like fake dating. So we have like The Plus One by Mazey Eddings. And really enjoy Marriage of Convenience, but that's just not going to work in a YA. So we're going to hold off on that one as long as I'm doing YA. But I love both of those because the reasons for having to do them are always like bonkers. Like on some level, it's always a little outlandish that you have to fake date or you have to get married right now. And that's the only way to solve your problem. But I love it. It's so fun to read. It's so fun to see like all the different wild situations people come up with that you like, that it's the only way to solve this problem. And seeing it progress from, it's totally fake. It's just like, it's just for like on paper. And then obviously it's never going to stay that way.
No.
I feel like when I'm thinking of things I'll never write, like you said, which never say never.
Yeah.
Honestly, I can see myself doing anything because I used to hate reading this one. I used to hate reading like secret/surprise baby. And now it's like my toxic trait about myself where I like I feel bad about it, but I enjoy it more.
Drop some titles. Let's go. Like, no, I'm just kidding. I don't want to put you on the spot.
I mean, like Lizzie Blake's Best Mistake by Mazey Eddings has a surprise baby.
Yeah.
And I think it's maybe just me getting older and being like, oh, actually, having a baby is not always a terrifying, tragic thing. People just have those for fun sometimes, and it actually works out fine. So maybe that's it.
Fair enough.
I also secret baby's more like,
yes,
you had a baby together years ago and never told the father that it existed. Like that really bugs me because I will read it and sometimes enjoy it.
Yeah.
I can't see myself writing it well because I would just do so poorly with keeping the secret for years and years, and there's so much tension and
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Those create like a visceral reaction to me where I'm like, talk it out. Well,
how did you not tell him? He's like a billionaire. Why didn't you tell him?
Why would you not want that life?
He could have supported you.
He has the funds in this economy. You're gonna
I would tell him immediately, even if it wasn't him.
So true. No, I mean, to be honest with you, like I never thought I was gonna write an accidental pregnancy novel ever. And again, I lost control of my characters, so I just had to go with it.
Thank you. That's one of my favorite surprise babies.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Love Triangle is one that I like.
Oh,
that one is I get so stressed and sweaty reading about a love triangle. Yeah. And like my feelings get hurt. So then I'm like, everybody's feelings must be hurt right now. But I'm in the midst of writing one. And so I guess I don't hate it as much as I thought I did. I know. Just keep writing the things that I hate the most. I know, it really is. It really is.
I feel like that's such a part of like our generation. We like came of age with the heyday of love triangles and like YA.
Yeah, for sure.
Katniss and Peeta, Gale, and Bella and Edward and Jacob. It was like peak time for indecisive girls in YA.
That's a great way to phrase it.
And it really glamorized that. It's hard to take that out of your teenager within.
Yeah. It's like, well, now there's like this big trend to why choose,
Again, hard to make work in YA.
Yeah, not as functional, but never say never again. But I think that's a real so were those books influences for you in becoming a YA author? I mean, I was hugely influenced by Twilight, like I'll own it for sure. Yeah. And the Hunger Games, but
I'm surprised at my past self I didn't get into Twilight. I was just talking about this recently. This came up somehow about how I read the first book on the last day before the movie came out because I wanted the AR points before it dropped down. When a movie came out for a book, it would drop down to 1 AR point. I don't know if you had those in school.
What's an AR? Like accelerated reading points?
Yeah.
Oh, that was when I had my first panic attack.
Let's unpack right now.
Yeah.
So lots we could go on about the stress of being a perfectionist student, but not the point of the story. In which I just speed read the book and didn't even finish it. Like, sorry to my 8th grade English teacher. I looked up the ending so that I could take the AR test. I think if I'd taken the time and gotten sucked into it, I could have been fully in it. Mm-hmm. But I just didn't allow that. I did get fully into the Hunger Games.
Yes.
As it was coming out, that was my high school years. I was fully in it.
Which Team Peeta or Team Gale? There's a correct answer here.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Well, now
it's Peeta, right? Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I was Peeta, but I was worried because Gale is so hot. But I've always been there for the soft boy. Yeah. The soft boy, Brett Baker.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad we're all on the same page in this community.
Yeah.
What? You have something to say?
No one in the audience feels called out right now. So I was always a Peeta. But then it is, it's hard not to let all the outside opinions get in your head and tell you that maybe you should reconsider at all times. as you want us to do when you write a love triangle.
Yes.
You want people to be torn.
Yes. Very true. Very true. Yeah.
Can't wait to see how you do that.
Yeah, me too. I'd love to know how that one is.
Can't wait.
That would be fun.
Yes.
Well, I'm just gonna double check that I got through all the
Yeah.
questions that I wanted to ask
I
you. Oh, actually, this one was really important. You captured awkwardness so well. What?
I really need to ask me how.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, like, I think one of the sweetest things about it was like they were so endearingly awkward about having these very like unforeseen crushes on each other and stuff. And so, yeah, was that just so fun to write, or was it kind of hard to get them to that point? No, not at all.
No, I feel like, yeah, awkwardness just comes so naturally to me in all of the forms. So no, that, I don't know. I have found myself answering very like more questions than usual recently about like writing YA and how I get in the mindset of like a teenager and stuff. And it's just funny to think about because I hadn't really thought about it before. And I'm like,
maybe
let's
I'm
unpack
always,
that.
yeah. Am I just always in the mindset of like,
have I never grown up? And actually I am just a youth on the inside. I don't know, but I think it's funny because I think as adults, even a lot of times we're having these things on the inside. We've just gotten a lot better at like covering them up and putting on a casual, cool, collected facade. Even if like internally freaking out and wondering what everyone thinks about you at all times and overthinking everything. And so I love like the room YA gives you to embrace that and be as just full like head case as possible because that's just like you have so many like emotions and hormones and everything happening at once when you're 17 and falling in love for the first time in any situation, but let alone with someone who's always just been your friend.
Yeah.
You're like, what is this feeling that has suddenly appeared? And oh no, it got hot. Like
I love
it came out of nowhere.
That's my favorite trope, probably. Oh no, you're hot. Like, I love that. Yeah, and you do it so well.
And I was never a girl who was friends with boys, so I never faced this as a like my friend got hot. But I definitely faced it in like this person I've known since kindergarten is suddenly an attractive person. What I do is just not talk to her again. But in the case of book characters, you have to face they're favorite than me. I can handle that. But it was really fun to write and fun to imagine myself if I had been a person who talked to boys, how I would talk to a boy who was my friend and suddenly had stronger feelings.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Well,
I think I had a remaining thing I was going to ask. Okay, this is like total pivot back to the very beginning of this conversation.
Absolutely.
When you talk about like, there's a lot of really heavy themes that happen in this book, a lot of heavy things that Indira's dealing with and Jude's dealing with, and right alongside them falling in love and right alongside a lot of like really hilarious circumstances, one-liners, events, just it's super funny while also dealing with very real trauma and just psychological things. How do you strike that balance? And is it a struggle for you, or is it like, does it come naturally? Because as you were kind of saying, like it is, all of that is a part of life.
Yeah, I think I've always used humor as like a coping mechanism in a lot of ways. And I think a lot of people do. But I also think just like, it sounds weird to say, but humor is just like one of my favorite things, and laughing is one of my favorite things. And so, I kind of search for that in every opportunity. And I think the same is true in my books and with my characters too. And, I think a lot of times when it comes to mental health in particular, we see these stories from a very traumatic lens about how somebody is navigating these emotions or, this very dark place in their life. And I think it's very easy to lean into the hurt of it and like to lean into like that darkness and those bad feelings. I think it's a lot harder to try to find, little blimps of joy and happiness in it. And so that's what I always try to explore. Because to me, hurt and pain and sadness are never mutually exclusive with laughter and happiness. And they just come at different levels at different times, but they're always still there and together. And plus, it would just be it would be a bummer to write without, having them get involved in some banter or like some silly situation. It's kind of the only way I know how to navigate big feelings.
I think that's just like one of my favorite things about the romance genre is the ability to do so much in one story. And you're tackling like two people falling in love, but also they each come with their own lifetime of issues and drama and all of that. And also, if you're a romantic comedy writer, you're going to make it funny.
And Twitter might think you're not, but
just be funny or just be dramatic. But I'm of the same opinion as you, where like life is all of those things. It's hilarious, it's heartbreaking, it's really romantic and fun, and all in equal turns, not equal turns always, but all at the same time. And I love the power to do that in a book. I love reading books that do it so well, like the Plus One does. I was like laughing so hard one page, the next page I'm like near tears.
Same.
I'm not a crier even. You're just really good at that.
Well, I cried writing it for most pages too, so I'm glad that's like full circle retribution there.
Contagious. And it just like I will finish a book like that and just feel really good, like because overall, even if there's sad things that happen, you get to in romance tie it up in a bow at the end, and I love that.
Oh,
I love how you do it in the Plus One.
Thank you. And I love watching these two characters come into their own too, and you do such a good job of not only showing their love story together, but these two individual people learning to love themselves and discover who they are and stuff. And so, you nailed it. Very proud of you.
This is just a self-congratulation.
Yeah, it is. Well, should we move on to questions? Would that be good with you? Katie, is that cool with you? All right, let's do it.
Do we call on people?
Yeah, Katie, do we call on people? Yeah. Allie, go ahead.
Hot take on Katniss being ace.
Ooh. Oh, I have not explored
the
that.
whole thing.
Because
when she was discussing like between the two, it was very like logical. It wasn't like about feelings as much.
Oh, so the question was for our virtual viewers. I guess there's a theory going around that Katniss from the Hunger Games was asexual, and I haven't read those in like a hot minute, so I don't, at this moment in time, I cannot comment, but give me a week and I will have a full like 10-page essay on it for sure.
We'll do our research and come back with our well-formed opinions.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued on that.
I've like heard about this before, but I've not delved super deep into it. So
I can see that. Yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
Teenage Kaitlyn was not informed on these things and could not have read it that way. But I would love to go back to it as an adult and see.
Kate.
We've got one from our virtual audience. It is from Susan Lee. You each debuted only last year. Now that you're out with multiple books, have you found it any easier to write, market, and release books?
So Susan's question was, so Kaitlyn and I both debuted, you were in April of last year, right? And then I was March. So we were both 2022. And Susan's question was, has it become any easier to market and promote and do any of this stuff? No.
This is a personal attack from Susan.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if the things get even harder in different ways. Were you going to say more on that? I kind of just.
No, I was going to say so this is your second, this is my third. And so for each one, I've noticed that my like brain rot spiral happens closer to release day, so I'm not living in it as long, which I think is tremendous growth. Round of applause for that. But you know, but otherwise, no, it's very stressful. I think it's hard to put anything that you care about deeply out there. You know, books are a weird merging of like art and consumerism, and you know, there's a lot of weird feelings that come with that. And so I don't know that if that will ever stop feeling weird, but
yeah, I think I feel slightly more able to remove myself from, like, the whole writing process feels so personal and is so like you're so in your head and in your own feelings the whole time. And the further and further you get in the process, the more it like goes a little further away from you. And so it's like out to various editor, copy editor, proofreader, then it's out to like production, and then it's early reviewers, and then finally it's out in bookstores. You cannot change it anymore. There's no more like work on my end on this book. And it's kind of gotten to where like by that point, it's been so long since I've worked on this book that I feel a little more able to like separate myself from the really like personal things that go into every book and not take it so personally, whatever anyone thinks and feels about it in the end, because what's it going to do if I take any of that personally except just make me feel bad? So yeah, I say that, but also it comes and goes, and there's days that it's harder than others. Yeah, I think like with probably anything, any career that the further you get into it, I don't know, maybe this is really optimistic, but the better you are at like having some perspective on what's important and what's not. And I'm still definitely in the thick of like getting that perspective, but it feels great when I can like not care about something anymore that I shouldn't care about. Which is all very big, but it's a lot of just book production process and the book promoting process.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Y'all mentioned talking about like trauma and mental health stuff. What do you do for self-care personally?
The question was talking about like trauma and mental health things, what we do for self-care, like when writing or just in general.
I'm not great. I'll be the first to admit that my self-care game could be a lot higher. I've recently taken up pickleball, which has like within the past week, which has
I love this so much.
Which has really done tremendous things for me. I'm not even being sarcastic when I say that. Like, it's been really great. But you know, it's interesting too, because like reading used to be my main source of self-care. And the deeper you get into the writing career, the harder it is to just dive in and read for the pleasure of reading, instead of looking at something as a craft book or comparing it to like what you were able to do and stuff. And so I've found that reading subgenres outside of contemporary romance is a really, really great way to escape. And then, you know, honestly, I love TV so much. Like, TV is definitely self-care. And I know that's not very highbrow or anything like that. Not that I've ever pretended to be, but
What is this event if not?
Yes.
All of our not highbrow.
Yeah.
No, I'm that way too. I love my I use this word affectionately, trashy reality TV. I say in the most loving way. And yeah, similar feelings about reading, where like reading romance especially is such self-care for me. And yeah, you have to find your ways that you're going to do that and not think constantly about it as related to the job. And I love like historical romance for that. It's such a comfort read for me. To just dive deep into some historical romance author with 1 million books that I haven't read yet. And I enjoyed that. I am also generally bad at self-care, but when I am thinking about it, in rare instances, I like to do puzzles.
Oh, nice.
I like to cross stitch.
Nice. Another good one.
Just do things that are kind of mindless, and like maybe listen to an audiobook of my comfort reads and historical romance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's my thing.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Kind of like piggyback off that, is it like normal to publish so many books so quickly? Or like, in like ages, did you already have those books prepared? Like, how was that realistic? If you weren't writing.
Is that mainly to me or, yeah. Because
It's like more and more, the question was like about if it is normal to publish books so quickly and like what that schedule is like, if you kind of had books written when you got an agent already. I would say it's like pretty standard in a lot of popular fiction right now to do a book a year. And there's a lot of opinions on that and the sustainability of that. And my opinion varies by the day and how hard of a time I'm having at any given point with working on a book. Mazey can speak more to this, but Mazey's had a kind of even faster schedule with just the way your series has been released. And it's things vary greatly.
You know, one thing, so there, commercial fiction, which is things like romance, I would say a lot of YA, you know, thrillers, things like that. What's really amazing about the readership is they're so voracious and they read really quickly. And so there's a lot of like industry want and desire to get books out quickly, whereas you're looking at things like literary fiction, where it almost is like a slow burn on the publishing side, where, you know, the longer somebody goes between releases, the more buildup there is and stuff like that, because they're just interpreted.
The first Mazey Eddings book in 10 years. We're so excited about.
And you know, and I think it's just, I can't speak to that writing process, but I think it's just you know, different ways that the stories are consumed and things like that. For example, I wrote this towards the end of 2020. So, you know, 2.5 years ago, I turned in a draft for this book, and I wrote my first book back in 2019. And so, you know, the thing that I did, which I guess technically you're actually not supposed to do, I just kept writing them, whether anybody was going to buy them or not. And so by the time I got my first book deal, I had already written the first 2 books in this series, and my editor had bought both books. And so basically when I signed, I was like, oh yeah, and here's the second book. And she's like, what's it about? Like, you're supposed to actually have conversations with your editor and like discuss things and like, I sound fake. I wouldn't know, but like, I've been very lucky. You know, obviously if you couldn't tell, I have ADHD. And so I'm very like hyper fixated on things, and I get really excited. And I've been very lucky that my publishing team and my editor and my agent have allowed me to really just like ride that runaway brain train and like write what I want to, and trust me to like deliver, revise the story afterwards. And so, because they've put me on a 6-month schedule, where every 6 months I'm releasing a book, and I did write ahead, and now I'm finally to the point where I'm like really dangerously flirting with a deadline coming up. And so no, it's not. It's horrible. No, so we'll see what happens with that. But I think long term, you know, if I hadn't written ahead, I don't know that I could do this schedule by any means. And I don't know that I would want to. Because when you have a story written, you want to get it out so fast, and it feels like forever. But when you're actually working on one,
that's such a weird thing too, because the publishing timeline is so long. So like this book I drafted first in early 2021, and and like just now coming out, and that can feel like forever. But when you're actually kind of in it, it's like, oh, there actually is work to do the whole time, basically, up until it goes off to production and it's out of your hands. I feel like the writing speed for me is not that hard to keep up. Like, I could write that much. It's when you add in all the other things that you have to do as an author that it can become more of a crunch. And it'll be harder to split my head between promoting this book and revising this book and trying to draft a new thing to sell next.
Yeah.
I say while also loving all parts of it in different ways too, and not wanting to do anything else.
Katie.
All right, I have another question from the online audience. This is from Rebecca. Forgive me if I say the name wrong, Rebecca. They wanted to know if these were the original titles of your books, or did you have someone pick those out for you?
So Rebecca's question was if these titles were the original titles of our books or if somebody else picked them up. So you can go first with that one.
Yeah, this was not the original working title, but I did still come up with it later on. So the working title at first was Leading Lady, and the show is in the book is called Aspen Woods Future Leading Lady. The acronym for which is awful. And so I come up with that before naming the character of Aspen Woods? Yes. I love to work everything around a joke.
Yeah.
And then Not Here to Stay Friends came to my head later on as I wanted something more fun than Leading Lady. And I love a play on words. And so it's like all the things reality show people say about, I'm not here to make friends. But in this case, friends to lovers, they're not here to stay friends. Isn't the joke even better when you explain it?
Yeah, in great detail.
Break it down
Yeah.
in detail. You're welcome, everyone.
Well, I've literally named a character Kale in my current work in progress for a joke that I'm dying to put in there, and I'm like, bring it, and I'm just like, it's not even fun. It's not even funny at this point. Like I know that, I'm like, I can't stop myself. But no, I have yet to successfully name one of my own books. None of my books have. Oops, sorry. A Brush with Love was originally called Tongue Tied.
Saucy.
Yeah, but I got told from higher ups, no teeth, tongues, or dental references, nothing to the oral cavity, and so I was like, okay, and so somebody else came up with it. And then Lizzie Blake's Best Mistake was originally A Taste of Chaos, because I was like, oh, that goes with the first title, and then they were like, no, the word chaos does not work, and so I was like, okay. And so then Lizzie's last name was actually originally Bottom, and so I wanted to I wanted to play with like Rock Bottom or something like that, and everybody was like, no. And so Ailsa didn't come up with that.
Also, let's change your last name.
Yeah.
That's
No, literally. And then And then the plus one was originally called Of Love and Letters because it was a different book. I sold it. It was an epistolary romance. And I mean, like literally some of the most chaotic just exchanges I've ever had with other humans are these email chains where it's like 2 a.m. and I'm sending like 15 possible titles to my editor. And I'm like, I know I just sent you an email an hour ago, but what about these? And then she's like, hey, what if we just put something like so gentle, so loving. I'm like, okay. Yeah. And so, you know what? So my 5th book is coming out next April. And at this point, I don't know the title of it. And like, it's become like a big source of like, nobody knows the title of it either. So I am so burnt.
Titles. And I love plays on words and puns. And so far I've expected, it's funny, I've had like the opposite. I've expected people to change my titles at every stage with both books so far, and it just has never happened. And I'm like surprised I get away with it every time. Love from Scratch was like more of a like, I want you to pick a better title than this. I just haven't come up with one myself, and everybody liked it. This one, I'm like, I am in love with this title, and I don't want you to pick a better one, but I don't think I'll be allowed to do this. And then it just works.
Yeah,
we'll see how this proceeds.
Yes, absolutely. We have time for one more question, if anybody has one.
I was going to make you talk about Tilly and Technicolor, but I totally forgot that.
Oh, go ahead.
So you have all your characters interacting in your books. How do you think the couples from Love from Scratch and Not Here to Stay Friends would interact?
Ooh, I love that question. So she asked how Mazey has all the couples from her books so far interacting in her books, and how I think the couples from my books would interact. yeah, so I think it would be interesting because they have a lot in common. Like both have ended up in kind of inadvertent like fame situations or reality show situations. Reese and Benny are the couple in Love from Scratch, and Sloan and Liam here. I think they would get along. I think Liam and Sloan would probably are like both a lot chiller in different ways than Reese and Benny were in like opposite ways from each other, but neither of them is chill whatsoever. So I think Sloan and Liam would be like, you people are a lot. But like in that, like Benny's real over the top charmer. Reese is just like a ball of anxious energy. And they would probably be a little too cool for them. But also they might just be friends because they have all this stuff in common. The book I'm writing right now is a spin-off of Love from Scratch about a side character from one of Reese's best friends is the main character in the third book that I'm writing. So it will be Reese and Benny will show up again. Yeah. I've thought about trying to retroactively work Sloan and Liam in there somehow by like making up some relation that doesn't currently exist. We'll see.
Well, thank you guys so much.
Appreciate you coming out.